We're back with Book of Experts TV, and today we're talking about how to inject more confidence into your coaching. Now, that could be for your clients, or it could even be for you. Like, yeah, sometimes even we feel a little bit less confident than we want to. So what is this whole topic of confidence? What does it mean? More importantly, what are you going to do with it in your coaching? How do you maximize that in your coaching? That's the topic, and I hope you'll join us today for Book of Experts TV.
Time for Book of Experts TV.
Topics you love.
Experts you trust.
Friction-free referrals.
Tried,
Tested,
Trusted.
This is Book of Experts, brought to you by salesman.me. All right, so if you've joined us before, you know how we do this on Mondays. We call this our Nights at the Round Table because we're going to bring in our expert panel to talk about this topic of confidence in coaching for yourself and for your clients. Our first guest expert is Parisa Bania. You guys, some of you may recognize that face and that name. Parisa has actually been on one of our earlier panels as well, where we talked a little bit about this field of coaching, and we have a lot of folks out there in the audience that this is what they do and they want to do it at the highest level. That's why I love having you on, Parisa. Parisa is the founder and CEO at Sixth Sense Strategy, where she talks about helping make people better in what they do. I'm going to use her word that she uses, turning themselves into a badass and taking their game to a higher level. So super excited to have you back and joining us, Parisa.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much. This is going to be great.
Yeah. And we also have a new guest expert joining us today, Pam Griffiths. Pam, super excited to have you join. Pam is the founder, speaker, author, founder, CEO of Pam Griffiths Executive Coaching. And also, I want to make sure I get the name right on this, the founder of the Coach Approach Systems Coaching Academy. So super excited. This is your sweet spot. And folks, just to keep score here, we actually do have one other expert I'm hoping will join us, Kelly Blackmon. Listen, technology is what technology is. Some days it's easier than others. So if he's able to get in and join us, I'll bring him in. We'll do a sort of midway introduction. But otherwise, we're going to roll into it because we have been getting a ton of questions about this topic. Confidence, like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because one, if you don't have it, you're feeling it in a major way. And when you do have it, it seems to be the energy that just propels us forward. So I would like to start with probably the biggest question, biggest in terms of volume that people have been asking. Is this idea of confidence, is it just a fake it till you make it? Parisa, I'm going to start with you because I'd love to hear your take on this, but this is, in different words, this question kept reappearing from folks. They wanted to know, how do we get confidence? If we're not feeling confidence, is it just, you got to tell yourself you're going to ignore all that other stuff and just act confident, and then you'll start to believe it yourself? What are we doing to actually build the confidence, or what are you doing with your clients, I should say?
Yeah, I love this question. And it's something that we all grapple with. This is, to me, I'm going to be a little contrary here. I'm going to warn everyone. Confidence is a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator. So what do I mean by this? It's after you test and test and test, and you lean to a little bit of courage, you lean into a little bit of fearlessness, it doesn't mean that you're reckless. You see the risk of doing something new, but you go ahead and do it anyway because you know there's value in the learning. So if anyone has read Carol Dweck's growth mindset book, mindset book, it's this idea that people with a growth mindset love learning and they devote energy to learning because they recognize the iterative benefits of going through and improving based on what they learn. So this is about mastery as opposed to performance. Performance is like a sprint. Mastery is more like a marathon. So I love confidence, but I don't want people to believe that they have to lead with confidence. Let's lean into a little bit of risk loving first and experimentation with the lagging indicator, like I was saying, to be confident.
So I love this distinguishing between the leading and the lagging indicator, because, you know, I come from the sales and marketing world. That's you're talking my language. You know, this is a big part of what's actually going to have this causal correlation and create the results and the outcomes that we're looking for. And what I'm hearing you say, Parisa, is maybe focusing on confidence is the wrong thing. We could focus on mastery, and we'll go a little bit deeper on this. But let me challenge you on this. And I'm Pam, I'm coming for you. I'm going to hand this over in just a moment. You can pick this ball up and run with it. What do you do when you're not feeling confident, or your clients are not feeling confident? Because while I hear you that it is a lagging indicator, it has a big seat at the table in people's minds. It's kind of like the white elephant that we have to address in some shape or form for a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great thinking. And I love this idea of what do we do if we are not feeling confident, or our clients, they aren't feeling confident. And I believe that courage and confidence goes together. And we never want our clients to sort of jump off into the deep end without equipping them and preparing them in a readiness to move forward courageously. And so, I think the best thing that we can do as coaches when we see that our clients are not feeling confident in taking a step forward, we want to listen for readiness. What is their readiness to move forward on that? Because confidence, it takes learning, as Parisa said. It takes intestinal fortitude to move forward. We need to be equipped with some success and tools in our toolkit to be ready to move forward. So the question then becomes, what's getting in the way? I'm sensing that there's something going on here around being ready to move forward on this. And tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, 1 being low, how confident are you feeling about this? So really getting a sense on, getting a pulse on where your client is at on moving forward, and their confidence level in taking, big, courageous action.
So Pam, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment, because you kind of opened Pandora's box there. I love where Parisa talked about mastery. You've talked about courage. One of the questions that I want to hear from everyone is how big of a part of your coaching conversations is this topic of confidence? But before we go there, we do have our other guest. I want to introduce Kelly Blackmon. So Kelly, welcome to the Expert Call. Listen, I'm so glad you could get in, because technology is, it's great when it works, and it's a challenge otherwise. So I never know for sure how that's going to work. But folks, let me introduce for a second. Kelly Blackmon is a self-mastery coach, founder of B.E Consulting, has a 15-year background in the corporate world doing career coaching. His focus in this coaching space is on emotional intelligence. So I knew he would have a lot to share. Kelly, we're already underway. We're digging into this whole question of confidence and, is it a fake it till you make it? Parisa has brought up the leading indicators versus lagging indicators. We've talked about courage and mastery. I'd love to hear a little bit. Actually, I'm going to ask you this question, Pam. We'll come back to you in just a moment. Kelly, I'd love to hear your perspective. How often does confidence become part of the conversation in your coaching?
Well, see, now I love this, because I think a big part of this ends up being about confidence, about what it is that we believe we can do. And yeah, I'm a big proponent of fake it till you make it. I remember there was a post a few weeks ago and someone said, I fake it till I make it. And I brought up, honestly, I think we're all faking it every day. And the reality is that just the neuroscience of it, the way our brains work, we have to be reaching for something that we haven't quite achieved yet, just to be fulfilled. So I think that there's a big part of this that really says what we want to do is reach out for things that we believe we can reach. Now, Obviously, I'm not going to the moon or anything. Really good chance I'm not flying around. But what I do think is that as you're putting yourself further out to go and actually gain things that you perspective, influence, experiences, things that you haven't reached before, you're actually learning. So it's not like you're confident enough to try something and the back end never catches up. It does catch up. The things that I'm faking today are totally different from what I was faking yesterday, because the things from yesterday that I was faking, I now know, I now get it. So yeah, I would say confidence is a huge piece of this, because without it, there's no ignition. There's no reason to move forward. None of us are ever like jumping off our porch and saying, hey, I'm going to take off and go to the moon, because there is no hope for that. So yeah, I think it's a really big piece.
So it kind of feels like we're painting a landscape here, that because we've started with this, Parisa had brought up mastery. Pam has talked about courage, which moves us into this comfort zone, or extending, or even moving beyond the comfort zone, which is where confidence starts to come in, because we might feel challenged in that way. One of the questions Tina has asked in the audience, she said, does confidence equal belief? Pam, I'm going to come back to you if we could, because I sort of asked you a question, didn't give you a chance to answer that one. So we'll go Pam, and then I'd love to hear Parisa's take on this as well.
Yeah, so I think what we're doing here, what we're talking about, is we're building momentum. And, I love what you said, Kelly, around fake it till we make it. Yes, and that what I was saying about really making sure that you have what you need to take the leap. What are the tools that you need to have around you to really feel ready to move forward in a confident way, even though you don't have a track record? And that's actually what we're doing. We're learning every day. And so, what you said, Kelly, about what I knew yesterday isn't what I know today. And so trusting that where you are headed, the direction that you're headed in, you feel there's something inside you that's calling you forth, that's saying, we got to do this. Come on, let's do this. And so that's part of the anchoring, I believe, in, having the confidence to do something. There's some kind of inner niggling thing that's happening, that we really feel we want to get to this certain level of success or reach a goal, whatever that might be. And so I think when it's grounded and rooted in that, that's the starting point of building the confidence, because we know deep in our heart that we want to attain a certain whatever that goal is. And so we're building our structure and our resources and our learning, and equipping ourselves with, we're getting better at it, even though we've never done it before. And as you mentioned, Kelly, the neuroscience in coaching is we're creating new pathways in the brain when we're really truly coaching our clients. We are, we're building new pathways. And so of course there's a lot of unlearning that happens, and some new learning and embedding that skill and knowledge as we move forward. So really having a lot of grace, at this time of courage, and building your confidence is so key.
Yeah, it absolutely feels like this year has heightened our awareness and maybe changed the conversation a little bit. Parisa, I'd love to hear from you. How big a part of this conversation of confidence, how big a part of that is injected into your coaching on a day-to-day basis? And then I'm going to follow up with a question. Well, I won't give you that one yet. Let's start with the first question, but just know there's another one coming on the heels of this.
All right, fair enough. So, confidence is French for imposter syndrome, is French for insecurity, is French for I'm afraid, it's all of those things. And look, we're human. It is natural and understandable for us to have a crisis of confidence. It is natural and understandable for us to look over the ledge and say, hell no, I'm not jumping, not for me. So it is the basis of every single engagement, or it's certainly a part of an important part of every single engagement. And so it's like rapid prototyping. kind of like what I was saying before, where there's mastery and then there's performance. Mastery is like a marathon. You're training and you're training and you're training and you're training. And once we learn to let go of an emotional attachment to a specific outcome, it becomes much easier and much quicker for us to come from that goal that we have and accomplish it, and then set that next goal, accomplish that one, set the one after that, and accomplish that one. Once we stop assigning so much weight to the doing or not doing of a particular thing. It doesn't mean that you don't care. The emotional attachment to the outcome, especially when it's high, is when we miss really key learnings as to what it is that we're doing as leaders, how it is that we're doing it as leaders, and how it is that we are engaging with our teams, our clients, so on and so forth.
So my follow-up question, and this is really for all three of you, Parisa, I'll let you answer quickly, and then we'll sort of roll through from Kelly to Pam. There is this concept of lending someone else, in this case, maybe your client, lending them the confidence to get them moving, to build some momentum. Is this part of what you do? And if so, how do you think about that in a process? And the reason why I wanted to bring this question up is, what does it actually mean? Because I've heard this referenced from different folks, but I'm curious to know more about the how, what's going on behind the scenes. That this concept of I have some experience. I have extended that comfort zone, as Kelly shared with us before. So I have some confidence in this space. I'm bringing someone along who's maybe a step or two behind where I was. How are we able to lend them and help them get to this place? Back to you, Parisa.
I think the word lending for me doesn't land right. And it's not because I'm playing semantics. It is, I invite people to remember all the different ways that they have been successful. And I invite them to conjure up those factors that determine their previous success to help drive this one. They don't need me. They're not broken. But inviting them to remember why they are so powerful and inviting them to stand in their full power is how they kind of catapult themselves into where it is they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Kelly, I'd love to hear your take on the same question.
It's very similar. I think the idea of lending does it's a different sort of connotation. It's a little bit more like, and I know exactly where it comes from. It's, I believe in you, so now you can do this, and you have the foundation. But a lot like what Parisa mentioned, the reality is that people already have it. People already have it. The thing that I'm doing as a coach is to connect you with what you already have, to help you to reframe the ways that you're typically thinking. Because the reality is that if you haven't given up, then to some degree you are succeeding. If you haven't stopped trying, if you're still living life, then there is something that is in you that is telling you keep on moving forward. And I connect people with that. Not to plug my own show, but it's called How to Win at Everything. And the reality is that all I'm doing is talking to people about which places are you finding difficulties and how are you using that to translate into whichever way you measure success. And that's really all it is. It's always trying to help people to find themselves. It's never anything that a coach or a therapist or anything is giving them.
Mm-hmm.
So Pam, I'd love to hear your take. What I'm getting out of this is that when confidence is the issue, we're going to reconnect folks to when they've been successful in winning before, so we can build that momentum there to extend this idea of the comfort zone into new areas that they probably are exploring for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to jump off of that, really, it is about reminding our clients of who they really are and what is possible for themselves. We can inspire them and we can show them, we got to where I am. I got to where I am, but that doesn't help them get to know where they need to get to go. And so, reminding them of some of the chances that they've taken when they've taken courageous action and they've busted through a limiting belief tell me about that story. What did it take to do that? And what were you thinking about prior? And what did you learn about yourself in that situation? So it is that remembering and reminding our clients of who they really are. And I think what happens is the bigger our goals, it's like, my coach would say, the higher the devil, the higher the level, the bigger the devil. The more we step out of our comfort zone, sometimes the louder the noise can get. And so it's just that remembering of, oh yeah, I did this and I thought I couldn't. I thought it was impossible. And so taking them into what is possible.
Yeah, many times this field of coaching, it feels like we're on one side of the chasm and we can see the promised land on the other side. But boy, that gap looks like it's going to be a big leap, right?
Yeah.
It always reminds me of that scene in Indiana Jones. I can't remember number 4, where he takes the step out, into nothingness, into the void. He thinks he's going to fall down through, and he actually steps onto a bridge. That we are more capable. And in fact, we had a comment Hasna had shared, love this conversation about reminding our clients who they really are and tapping into, what they already are, what they bring to the table, and not, it's not, we don't have to generate something new. It's there. We just have to sort of collect our momentum. Yeah. Beautiful. So the next questions that we're going to dive into, I'm going to hold you off for just a second, just to give our panelists a little warning. I want to talk about the tools, the tips, the tricks, the process that you guys use in your coaching, because when we are able to amass a group and an expert panel like you guys together, you can imagine we've got a whole bunch of questions. People want to know what's going on under the hood. But before we do that, I want to remind folks that if you are able to join us afterwards, so we're going to this live stream that you're seeing, wherever you're seeing it. You might be on LinkedIn, you might be on Periscope, on Facebook, on YouTube. We're in all these places. If you're watching us on social media right now, we invite you to join us over in our virtual meeting space. We're going to do that right afterwards. So we live stream the panel for an hour, and then you get a chance to come and actually talk with the experts. We have a Q&A table set up for each of the experts where you can go and sit down with them in a small group setting. There's limited to 8 seats around each table, and you can actually ask some of the questions that you want to ask. If they don't get covered in our live stream panel, you're going to get a chance to spend a little bit of time with these experts, hear more about the work that they're doing, make that connection in a small group format. So we love that. We do that for about 15 minutes. That's at the top of the hour, right after the live stream. And the link to the virtual event, it's at AirMe, is actually in the comments. Wherever you're watching this, I've already put it in the comments. You can find us. There's also event details on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can find the Book of Experts page. There's information there. But after we do the Q&A tables, we're actually going to do the speed networking. And that's when you get a chance to meet maybe the experts who are in the panel, but also we have a ton of experts in the audience, people who are joining us and asking some of these questions that I've been putting up on the screen, folks that bring, our expert-based community. Folks, we have coaches, we have consultants, we have service providers, we have agency owners, we have authors and podcasters. These are the kind of people that you want to meet because you want to have a deep bench. When you're an expert, you are by definition not an expert in everything. So you want these kind of folks around you and you want to make the connections. And I'm going to take just a minute because last week we had a few questions about the speed networking. So I wanted to share something with you guys, and then we'll come right back and dig into the tools, the tips, and the tricks that you can use in the coaching space and around this topic of building more confidence. Pretty cool, right? So this is something that we're doing every Monday. We have our Nights at the Roundtable event where we bring in an expert panel. Next week, we're actually going to be talking about having more diversity in your business and why it matters. We do the panel, then we do the Q&A tables, and we do the speed networking. That's our process. And if you want to learn more about who we are and why we're gathering people together, come over to the Air Meet. We've got a table set up specifically Q&A about Book of Experts. In fact, you'll meet some of the folks on our team and in our community. I think you'll appreciate where this community is going and what the bigger mission and vision is that we're talking about tonight. Bringing it back to the topic for tonight, what we'll do I'm promising you guys we're going to get into the tips and tricks, tools. These are always the big questions. People love being able to peek under the hood. But to the panelists, before we go there, what are we not talking about that we have not yet raised? I've asked a couple questions, but what are we missing? Parisa, I'm going to bring this back to you.
I think we're dancing around it, but I'd really like to bring forth this idea of zone of genius. I'm a big fan of Gay Hendricks' book, The Big Leap. And when we are in our zone of genius, which is briefly the highest use of time and talent, that is the place where we are most likely to feel the most confident. We are most likely to yield the best results, not only professionally, but also personally. And really understanding what we're called to do, what our mission is, and why we have outsized impacts on other people, I think is really important for us to know, not only as coaches, but as we scale our business.
So I know that this idea of the zone of genius is a big part of the work that you do in your coaching in the workshops, Parisa. Actually, I'd love to hear Pam and Kelly. Is this also something that you guys, so I see Pam's nodding her head, yes. All right, so let's spend a little bit of time on this. And I think, can you carry it just a little bit deeper on how folks maybe should be thinking about this or how they're identifying it? If this is not clear cut to them, what should they be focused on? You've already mentioned the Gay Hendricks book, which would be one great resource. What else do they need to know? Pam, we'll come to you next, and then Kelly.
Okay, so
yeah, still with you for a second, Parisa.
So it's what Gay Hendricks would say is whatever in your work most feels like play. So you can be working 70, 80-hour weeks, barely sleeping, not even eating, not even remembering to eat or have social relations with people over Zoom in a pandemic. But it still feels like fun, that your level of passion is high. You're leaning into it. You can't get enough of it. That's what your zone of genius ideally feels like, the intersection of the best use of your time and talent.
All right. I love how you frame that up for us. Pam, where were you thinking? I saw you nodding your head. I could see you getting ready to jump in on this conversation. What does this mean to you in the coaching that you're doing?
So this is absolutely, when we talk about confidence and competence and all of that, and you spoke earlier, Topin, about your sweet spot. That is the genius zone that Parisa mentioned. Being in our sweet spot, it's absolutely about that. We are here to do great work, and we're here for a purpose, and we really want to leverage our strengths. So our sweet spot is about our strengths and our values that we bring to the world. And if we could just do that all day long, that's the ultimate of living your best life, and building, your business to whatever you want that to look like. And so we really, everything I do around our coaching work is about leveraging your brilliance.
Identifying it, recognizing it, building your process around it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Kelly, how about you? I'd love to hear your take on this same subject.
So it's an interesting thing. When I think about this from a client point of view, it's always me trying to help people remove these blocks, remove these. A lot of us, we come up in a time where our parents dictate to us what we're interested in, and it's a crazy thing to think before your frontal lobe is completely finished that you're gonna pick out the next 40, 50 years of a career. So I'm working with a lot of people who are always transitioning into what are they really looking for. So I think that zone of genius is it's a really huge piece. And I to be honest with you, I think it really is at the center of everything, because there are some people who are accountants, and that is fine because they make great money and they support their families, and those things are incredible. Those are things that you need, but they're happy as being a florist, you know? And to me, that's where you need to find that intersection with people to service the whole person. So finding out that place where they do find that ultimate sort of happiness, that ultimate joy, but then also helping them in the meantime make that a realistic everyday choice. For me, I find it in my coaching. Like I find it and it's taken me probably 25 years to get to a point where I realize this is a skill. Like I'm always drawn back to this thing again and again. And it doesn't matter when I was doing accounting, I was drawn to it. Each phase of my life, I can point back to going back to the same thing. And for me, it makes it a little bit more of a almost spiritual journey to help other people to find it. And that's me finding my zone of genius. And I work another job. So I never have to depend on money, so that it never perverts the fun thing that I'm doing, which is helping other people. So even though there's money in that, that to me is how you build a real balance in life.
I want to dig a little bit deeper here, because I see the lines of, we started with confidence. That's been the headline and the topic for this session. And we've transitioned into zone of genius. And I can see the red thread that ties the two of them together, because when you are in your zone of genius, this whole confidence thing is like almost a non-issue, right? You're playing, you're whatever it is that you're doing, the things that you did as a kid, you're able to do that in a new space, whether it's coaching or in your professional role, whatever that is, you're doing something that work becomes and starts to feel like play. Here's my pushback, and I'm going to be the voice of the audience for a second. How do you get there into that zone of genius when you, one, might be starting out and there's a lot of things that demand attention, which are not your zones of genius, but they have to get done. You don't have the budgets and the resources to allow other folks to play in those areas, or as a caveat or to extend that challenge, when you get caught up in your zone of excellence, so something that you're really good at and people will pay you really well for, maybe doesn't feel like play. So Parisa, you're nodding your head. I think you've got something to say on this.
So yeah, we all have to eat, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea in this instance, and in full disclosure, there are a lot of things that I'm doing right now that are zone of excellence that to help me support my genius. So Tobin, you've been great in helping me launch my 6 Sense Framework online course, but also at the same time, I'm doing a lot of heavy lifting to tell people that this course exists. Why? Because I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars at my fingertips to completely offload the marketing to other people. But talking about my course is my passion. So figure out what buckets are your, it's kind of like what Kelly said. It's not kind of, it's exactly what Kelly said. There are things that he's passionate about, but he also has to eat. There's no shame in that game. Pay your bills, feed your kids, feed yourself, but carve out time, protect your genius like a jealous lover, and feed your genius too, just like you would feed yourself or you feed your kids.
So Pam, does the genius, your zone of genius, then become a North Star that we sort of guide the work by?
Absolutely. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high, again, if it's anything below an 8, like who can you delegate it to? You know, yes, absolutely. To speak to Kelly and Parisa's comments about, maybe when you're first getting started as a coach, or you're starting to grow your business and wanting to leverage, it's like, how do you get out of the stuff you know how to do, you're good at, or you're excellent at, but you're not doing enough in your genius zone, in your sweet spot. And so it can be a tricky place to be. And so absolutely, we're always guiding our clients to ensure that, you're covered, and being fully aware that you might be the cog in the wheel, that you might be the one that's, stopping your progress. So learning how to get really creative around that is really important. And yes, we want to protect the time so that when you're not worn out from doing the stuff you don't love, stick to the stuff that you love, and try to figure out how you can delegate the rest.
And the interim strategy is to little by little move in that direction. So as the resources free up, continue to double down on your zones of genius and bring in support in other areas.
Yeah. And there's so many ways to do that. We get stuck in our thinking that we have to pay somebody a ton of money. Well, there's a lot of people that I've developed over the years to help me, and I've helped them. And so get what they want, and I help them get what they want, and they help me get what I want. And so it's worked really well. And so just getting really creative around that. We don't have to always equate, getting a bookkeeper or an accountant. It's going to be, I'm not going to be able to afford that. Well, what happens is, if we don't do it and we keep on doing the things we don't love, then we're not able to get into our genius zone, which is really where we can grow the business faster. So it can be a really sticky wicket, and just recognizing where the areas you feel really stuck in, and finding some creative ways to move out of that.
I feel like we're on a wheel and we're coming back around. So what I just heard you share, Pam, is that there's sort of a cost benefit analysis. Every time we make that choice to do the thing that we could do, it may not be our highest and best, but we could do it. We are essentially taking away our time of what we could do in that zone of genius. We have to make that, it's a calculation of where we're at the time. I want to bring us back around. And by the way, folks are loving this. Like some of the lines, Isadora said, "Protect your genius like a jealous lover." I think Parisa, you might have been the one that said that. This is great stuff. I love what you guys are doing. I want to come back around to this idea. Kelly, I'm going to call on you next. If we can talk a little bit about process. If you think of this in the context of tools, tricks, tips that you share from your perspective, and let's tie a nice bow around this idea of coaching, not only for ourselves, but for our clients, and how we can make that happen in the coaching process.
Sure thing. But before we do, Tovin, is it all right if I just speak a little bit to this last piece? Because I am so passionate about it. And I think that most people don't recognize that it's just like being a runner. It's just like being an athlete. Your body performs better the more you do it. So even though it is a calculation, it is an analysis that you have to start off with, and it's probably going to be a little uneven. The more you actually practice these things, the better you get at it. And now I'm to a point for myself where everything that I'm doing equates to, I'm still doing my coaching. So no matter if I'm running errands or if I'm making food for the family, it's all in there. So, okay, I just want to throw that in there.
So I just want to clarify what I think I heard you say, Kelly, is that when all your activities are serving the North Star zone of genius, it all feels like an extension of that. And you can actually operate in that place, even if you're doing some activities that otherwise would have felt like a drag. Yeah?
Yep. That is exactly it.
Okay.
And it makes everything else a lot more fun, makes life more pleasurable.
Interesting. I love that take. So let's dive into the tips and tricks. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
So one of the first things, especially when it comes to coaches, one of the things that I would probably recommend first is becoming self-aware. And we hear a lot about this when it has to do with our bias, when it has to do with our preconceived notions about things. But honestly, becoming self-aware about where it is you're trying to go, about what your actual North Star is. I think that's probably the biggest key, I would say, before or if you're doing it already during coaching, because that really helps to guide you on guiding anyone else, because you may have an issue with feeling whole and feeling valued. Someone else may have an issue with feeling like they're not smart enough, and they may come to you because something that is that issue, or something that's spiraled them because of that issue. But the reality is, the root of it is that all of us are looking for, how do we go? Which way do we go? What's our purpose? And how do we get to that purpose? So I would say having our own North Star is probably the most important thing we can do at any point in coaching. As far as like the rest of the things, I would say being a coach is essentially you being a great listener and reflecting everything that all of us already have the answers. If you're overweight, you understand you're overweight. You don't need to know that X amount of calories equal X amount of pounds, X amount of burn. You know, that's not where the issue is. The issue is, are we able to let down our ego enough to say, I'll let you have this space, this protected space where you're valuable, where you count, and in that space, you say, do the most outlandish, foolish things, whatever, say those thoughts, I'll give you that space. And now let's redirect that back to you. And now how do you use that, the person that you are, to move your journey forward? So it's a little indescriptive, but that's probably the biggest key I would give.
Creating that safe, sacred space where they can share and develop before they're going out to do the thing that they want to do. Interesting. Parisa, I'd love to hear your take on the same question. Cool tools, tips, tricks that you can share a little bit of insight into your coaching process.
I like to say that everything has an opportunity cost. There's an opportunity cost of doing something, and there's an opportunity cost of not doing something. And so if we don't kind of look at what we give up by staying in the same place that we're in, and then trying to determine which part of that is a headache versus which part of that is the migraine, and then assigning a value to the headache or the migraine, that is when we really start to understand what it is that we give up because we don't do something. There is also, by the way, an opportunity cost of doing something. When you do the opportunity cost of doing something is that you no longer waste time in your zone of excellence, your competence, or your incompetence. So for example, when I chose to work with a bookkeeper, I chose to step out of my incompetence, because when I was in my incompetence doing the bookkeeping, it was setting fire to my time and money. That was the opportunity cost of not working with the bookkeeper. So having people figure out what the pains and gains are of doing something and the pains and gains of doing nothing. Where does the most pain reside? Where does the delta between the pain and the gain reside? Where does the pain have more value than the gain? And then when you do it in a chart, people are like, holy smokes, I've been in like the equivalent of a lazy boy in my life, and I've gotten really comfortable, and now I see what the other room could look like. It's time for me to travel to the other room. So opportunity cost and identifying pains and gains of doing something and not doing something is a really interesting exercise.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you tied in the cost of inaction, and also, I think it comes down to labeling. Is this a hell yes or is it a hell no? And get out of that middle territory.
Yeah,
Pam, I'm going to ask you.
Maybe.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, there's no such thing as a hell maybe. It's either a hell yes or a hell no.
Well said. Well said. I suspect our audience is going to get that in the comments, because they've been great about, underlining some of these great phrases that you guys have been sharing. Pam, I would love for you to tie us up with a bow on this topic of coaching, the coaching space, and bringing us back around to the confidence and how that injects into what we're doing. Because in a moment, folks, we're going to do, you guys, if you've been with us before, you've seen this. We're going to do the expert panel picks of the week. This is sort of a little fun thing that we do, and then we'll make our transition over to that virtual space so you guys can join us in the speed networking and in the Q&A tables. So Pam, I'd love to hear you back clean up for us here. Take it home.
Thank you. So, we get to be the mirror, and as Kelly and Carissa were speaking to, we're creating the space for our clients to just get vulnerable with us. And who do you turn to when everyone turns to you? So really being able to hold up the mirror. Coaching is not a water cooler conversation. People come to us because there's something bigger happening inside of them. And so coaching is not for the faint of heart. And so, it requires us as coaches to be courageous with our clients in a way, iron fist, velvet glove way. And I think what's really important as we begin to take our clients into the future, we don't take them, we partner, we walk alongside of them, is we want to know, what's the cost, as you were speaking to, what's the cost? And if they were to do it, what would be the ROI, whatever that looks like, whether it's monetary or something around their health, what would it be worth to them to really go deep and really understand at a visceral level the purpose behind, the why behind the change they want to make. And so then taking them into the future, taking our clients to that 30,000 foot level to really get a view of what will it feel like when we get there? And have them articulate that. What is it going to feel like when you've achieved that vision, to really bring them to that place? It doesn't get better than that. And so we really want to be able to have our clients experience that. I think that's one of the best ways, one of the tools that I like to use to really get the clients to paint the picture and feel into that experience of how life will be different when they achieve their goals. And, there is, when we bring it back around, Tobin, to, how do we propel, or how do we build the confidence? It's really when we take them into the future, that we can really underscore the confidence, and they can really find the energy and rally around that goal. And it really helps to propel them into the future.
Well said. Well said. I really love this. So what I'd love to do now, as we go into this panel picks of the week, is we'll start to make this transition. I do want to remind folks that yes, you can join us for the speed networking afterwards. The links are wherever you're watching this, the links are in the comments, right? So we've got it on we're on all the different social channels. Make sure you check in the comments. If you're not sure, you can go, let's see if I get this right, live.bookofexperts.com. Also, we'll have our calendar that will have the link in it as well. Make sure you come over and join us. We want to hear from you. We want you to take a seat at the table, talk with our experts, hear from them, and of course, join us for the speed networking right afterwards. Let's start with Parisa. Would you kick us off with your panel pick of the week?
I am reading a book by Mark J. Silverman called Only Tens 2.0. And it really gets to this idea of zone of genius. Only spend time doing the things in your life that are tens or support the tens. And that will allow you to get a little bit more focus and happiness in your work.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds like the perfect interface for what we've been talking about tonight with the zones of genius. Kelly, I'd love to hear your panel pick of the week.
I am currently reading, this is a great book. It's called The Talent Code. Greatness isn't born, it's grown. It's by Daniel Coyle. And it is a fascinating look at, we've most of us have heard about deep work and about how to do deliberate practice. This book goes so much deeper into the actual myelin connections and basically how to supercharge your thinking and your brain to make neural connections faster and more resilient and that sort of thing. It basically goes everywhere from small town baseball in Cuba all the way to anyone who's mastered anything with like the 10,000 hours of mastery. It breaks it all down. Very, very good book for anyone who is a nerd like I am.
I love this. This is why we do this, folks. This is why we do the panel picks of the week, because we get these great recommendations, books, apps, tools. You know what? It might be something in the kitchen or just something that you're loving. We always, like, I just love this. I'm scribbling away in the background, trying to make notes on all these. Pam, how about you? I'd love to hear your panel pick of the week.
Yeah, so I'm going to just talk to you about one of my favorite books, Hargrove's work, Masterful Coaching. If you are wanting to learn more about coaching and really help to go deeper with your coaching knowledge and building your confidence around coaching, I would love to send you there to Hargrove's Masterful Coaching.
Wonderful. I love this. I'm going to make mine very quick, folks, because we're running up on the top of the hour, and we want to get into the all the fun that's coming in the next hour. But what I want to share with you guys, you may not have seen, but LinkedIn has actually opened up, and this is very relevant, folks, by the way, to next week's expert panel. I mentioned before, we're going to be talking about diversity in your business and why it's important. And LinkedIn has actually opened up this new resource. It's called the DIB, which is Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And they've created this whole website. It's let's see if I can look at the URL again. It's about.linkedin.com/dibs. So they're using dibs as sort of the reference point on this. But it's videos, it's playbooks, and it's specifically for underserved audiences, underappreciated creators and business owners. So I thought this was pretty cool to see LinkedIn doing this. I think it's part of the conversation, the bigger conversation that we're having. And specifically, I hope you'll join us next week as we get into this as well, because it's an important conversation, and we want you to be a part of it when we circle up with our panelists next Monday as well. It's Monday the 30th. So folks, I so appreciate you and our experts coming together to talk about confidence, to talk about coaching, what's happening behind the scenes, and how do they think about this art of, this art of coaching and taking ourselves and our clients to the next level. Folks, I really appreciate you. Make sure you join us over at AirMeet so we can introduce you to some folks, make those connections so you can take your game to the next level as well.